Hello, good morning. Welcome to Axiom Flux News. Today's date 7th of February 2015. Kicking off with a bit of breaking news from the Ukraine. Merkel and Holland to present the Ukraine peace plan to Putin. German and French leaders to meet Russian president in Moscow in attempt to achieve diplomatic breakthrough. Angela Merkel and Francis Holland are to meet Vladimir Putin to discuss a possible peace plan for Ukraine, as fears rise that failure to secure a breakthrough could trigger an escalation in a conflict that has already cost more than 5,000 lives. Before leaving for Moscow, the French president said securing a ceasefire for eastern Ukraine was just a first step and that a comprehensive agreement must be sought. So on Thursday, the US Secretary of State John Kerry said Washington was weighing up whether to supply arms to the Ukrainian government. Holland and Merkel were expected to hold talks with Putin at 5 p.m. Moscow time, which is 2 p.m. GMT time, though there was significant uncertainty over what ideas they were bringing to the table. They undertook the hasty and unusual mission after Putin put forward his own plan, and they responded with counter-proposals amid an upsurge of fighting and growing European fears that a US decision to supply arms to Kiev could trigger an uncontrollable rise in violence. So Merkel and Holland met the Ukrainian president Petro Poroshenko in Kiev on Thursday evening. In addition to this article from The Guardian, a short video from RT. I'll play this through.
Hello, welcome. You're watching RT International. We'll start with breaking news this hour because the peace talks on Ukraine between the leaders of France, Germany and Russia have concluded in Moscow. All the countries have called the negotiations that lasted more than 5 hours constructive. We can get more on this now with RT's Maria Fanoshina, who is following events at the Kremlin. Maria, not much is known about what came out of the meeting other than we hear was positive.
Not that much, actually, I have to say. The almost 5-hour negotiations between German, Russian, French leaders here in Moscow to bring peace to war on Ukraine are now over, and they were constructive and fruitful, as Kremlin's representative told the journalist, and he also said that work will continue on a joint document with proposals, remarks and initiatives by Vladimir Putin, Angela Merkel, François Hollande, but also Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to implement Minsk peace agreements. And also we're going to see another phone negotiations held in a so-called Normandy format, which means 4 countries, Germany, France, Russia and Ukraine, will be participating. Let's now listen to what Putin's spokesperson had to say.
Talks between Russia's President Putin, France's President Hollande, and Germany's Chancellor Merkel have been constructive, and work is underway on a possible joint document aimed at implementing the Minsk agreements. The document should include the Ukrainian president's suggestions, as well as those proposed today by President Putin. The work will resume and preliminary results will be announced on Sunday during a telephone conversation in Normandy format.
Well, I have to say that many things still remain unclear. We do not know exactly what these proposals, these initiatives by foreign leaders will look like. And we know that Angela Merkel and François Hollande arrived to Moscow to meet Vladimir Putin to discuss the situation in Ukraine after they had intensive talks with Ukrainian President Poroshenko in Kiev. And they forged a kind of a peace plan, but we do not know exactly what these plan includes, apart from immediate ceasefire. We also know that this joint document work on which will continue in the following days will be given for approval to all the sides of the conflict. But I have to say that all this comes at a very dramatic moment, at the time when the situation in Ukraine remains very tense, and we hear about casualties mounted, including among civilians, and at the time when we hear reports that in Washington they discuss weapons delivery to Ukraine. Well, we can only say that international efforts to bring peace to Ukraine continue, but we cannot say exactly whether it will be able to bring actually this long-awaited peace to Ukraine or not. We have to wait and see. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Maria. That's Artie's Maria Fanoshna there.
Okay, so this possible document that's in progress, we will be bringing you the latest information on that as it comes. So moving on to our next article. Hillsborough inquest, police threw fans back into pens. Sergeant Adrian Brazner said he could see it was not a pitch invasion, people were being crushed. Fans trying to escape the Hillsborough disaster were thrown back into pens by police officers, a jury has heard. Adrian Brazner, a sergeant from Nottinghamshire Police, sent to act as a spotter among Nottingham Forest fans, was giving evidence at the inquest. He said he shouted at police in front of the Leppings Lane terraces, "For God's sake, let them over the fences." 96 Liverpool fans died after the crush at the 1989 FA Cup semi-final held at Sheffield Wednesday Stadium. The inquest heard Mr. Brazner had been outside the Penistone Road end, but responded to a call for all available officers to head to the opposite end, where Liverpool fans were. The jury heard part of a statement Mr. Brazner wrote shortly after the 15th of April 1989 disaster. He said, open quote, "On reaching the West Stand, I saw many policemen throwing back persons into the crowd, who were apparently trying to get onto the pitch. I believed it was to prevent pitch invasion. However, as I walked closer to the fence directly behind the goal mouth, I could see that many people were being crushed and some were obviously dead." End quote. Mr. Brazner told the jury he started pulling on police officers, imploring them to let fans over the fence. So the 96 victims, a little collage there of, well, I say a little, 96 is quite a considerable amount. He said he saw the face of a woman who was pressed against a fence. She was desperately in trouble, Mr. Brazner said, adding that he feared she would die. I knew then it's definitely not a pitch invasion. Because the severity of her face, I knew that she was not going to survive. I then was grabbing police officers to stop them, shouting at them to stop and pushing the fans back down onto the bodies that were lying on the ground. There was no coordination. The jury heard Mr. Brazner, then started helping to get fans out of the worst affected areas in pens 3 and 4. He said there was chaos and no coordination or anything of that sort on the pitch. I recall that there were a lot of policemen who had got their backs turned to the Leppings Lane end. When we were carrying either living or deceased bodies out, we were having to push past them, or shouting at them to get out of the way because they were in shock. He further told the court they were dazed, they didn't know what they were doing. The jury also heard that Mr. Brazner honestly believed serious disorder would take place between Liverpool and Forest fans. He said he tried frantically to stop Liverpool fans heading towards the forest end of the ground, and was worried chanting may provoke the Liverpool fans, some of whom ran towards the Spion Court, where Forest fans were standing. A cordon of police officers were set up across the pitch between 15:37 and 15:40 p.m, the court heard. The inquest sitting in Warrington, Cheshire, are due to resume on Monday. So, also from the Sheffield Star, covering it as well. Same sort of covering really. He said, I actually came up to the fencing and I was pulling on police officers saying, for goodness sake, let them get over the fence. Mr. Brazier said he radioed to request the pens be opened and agreed there was no direction or leadership coming from match control. The hearing continues. And also in the Liverpool Echo, police officers seen throwing fans back into pens at Hillsborough. There's the Sergeant Adrian Brazier as he leaves the Hillsborough inquests after giving his evidence. Okay, moving on to my other one, unless you have any comments. The cost of living from this website, Numbeo. This is the most northern city of England in comparison to the most southern city of England. I'll just try and zoom it up there. The ones that may be struggling to see later on. So, for a meal, an inexpensive restaurant meal in Newcastle upon Tyne, you'd be looking to pay about £10 on average. But right down on the southern tip of the bottom of England, you'd be looking to pay about £15. That's a difference of 50%. For a Mac meal at McDonald's or an equivalent combo meal, it's a £2 difference. Even a bottle of water for, you know, it's a 21 pence difference. So it goes down. It's quite an interesting website. It's got a lot of information. And
milk's actually cheaper than milk's cheaper down in Cornwall.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. There's quite some varying things like milk.
Yeah, 65 pence is a pound up here for
in Cornwall.
Well, actually, that's a bit wrong. Actually, we can get 2 litre up here for £1, can't we? It says 1 litre for milk is £1, but we can get it for 2 litre for £1 up here.
Yeah.
Loaf of bread, £1, we can get it for £1. Yeah, £1.9 is about average rate. But bread's cheaper down there as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you do comparisons like this, and then you start comparing other countries and.
Pack of cigarettes, that's interesting. What's that pack of cigarettes?
A pack of Marlboro cigarettes.
Cheaper down there. Well, the cheaper, so they're £7. £8.20 up here, yeah. That's about right, £8.20.
A difference of minus 14%.
Is there any big comparison? Oh yeah, chicken breast, £7.50 down there, only a fiver per kilogram.
Yeah, that's 50% difference.
Yeah, sure.
So, my next one.
Taxes. They're going to taxes are £5 as well. Taxes for a kilometre, £5. Only £1 for us. It's £5 for them. So that's a big taxi fare if you're down in Cornwall.
Yeah.
400%.
Look at this one down. Basic electricity, heating, water, garbage for an apartment. Look at the difference. 173% difference.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. 400% difference for a tax. That's quite. I think that's the steepest one on this list. Yeah. Anyway, still staying on this sort of area. My next article is He or Teach. Ed teachers warning of stark choices facing schools. Just give me 1 second. Education freeze amounts to 10% cut over 4 years, with staffing levels likely to be reduced to avoid deficits. Teachers have warned they face having to choose between levels of staffing and heating to cope with budget cuts of an estimated 10% over 4 years. So we've gone from heat and eat to heat and teach. David Cameron's announcement this week that state school spending for 4 to 16-year-olds in England would remain frozen at 2010 levels was met with dismay by heads who have already shed staff and seen deep cuts in support services and local authority backing in recent years. But where's this to come? According to school leaders across England to whom The Guardian spoke, many are already calculating what corners they can cut in order to keep teachers in classrooms. So Tony Draper, head teacher at Waterhall Primary in the Milton Keynes, which has more than 300 pupils, said that small primaries with few additional resources were likely to be among the hardest hit, while struggling to meet increased demand resulting from the recent baby boom. Schools may have to cut down on energy costs to fund staff salaries as well. Essentially, what will have to happen is schools will have to rob Peter to pay Paul. It will come to a point where they will have to make staff redundant and they will have to increase class sizes. Julie Nash, head teacher of Cape Cornwall School, a small secondary comprehensive in St Just, Cornwall, said, "All of our staff costs are increasing in real terms. Everything we buy costs have increased, and yet the funding per pupil is remaining the same. So on an already very stretched budget, you're going to see more and more schools looking at a deficit budget. We're looking at alternative funding streams. What ways can we start to really save money on everything else we do apart from staffing? How can we join with other schools to buy paper?" It's getting like that. Saving money on paper clips, that isn't going to help much, but it helps a bit. Cameron's announcement that school spending would remain ring-fenced came as a small relief. But in real terms, inflation will eat away the value of the level set in 2010, and schools face extra costs later this year because of pay and pensions changes. Sam Friedman, a former policy advisor to the Department for Education, estimated that inflation and tax increases combined would amount to real terms cuts of more than 10% by the end of the next Parliament in 2020. So this article goes into a lot more. I'm not going to cover it all. Look at the article on Guardian. But what I do say is more important to reading this article from Guardian is you go and check the video on the Axiom community website on YouTube and have a look for the 3 books of Agenda 21 and have a read of that, and in there you'll discover the secret surpluses and how much money is being stashed away that many people didn't even have a inkling of, you know, it even existing. So while schools are struggling and parents have to fund, you know, for pens and pencils and private jumpers and uniforms and all these school trips and things with all these cutbacks, and things are getting took away, like, you know, breakfasts at schools and all these other clubs that they had going that did seem like it was you know, looking constructive for the schools at the time, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So yeah, thought I'd bring you to that, and that leaves me with my final article from the Oxfam. Poverty in the UK. The UK is the world's 6th largest economy. Remember, economics. Yet 1 in 5 of the UK population live below our official poverty line, meaning that they experience life as a daily struggle. Oxfam's vision is for everyone in the UK to have enough to live on, and for all men, women and children to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter how much money they have. We believe it is unacceptable that over 13 million people, 13 million, you're not hearing things, in the UK do not have enough to live on, and most do not have the power to speak out about what this feels like and why it is wrong. We work with others to achieve a fairer and more equal country in which everyone in the UK can live free from poverty and shame. We do this in 3 ways. We develop projects to improve the lives of people living in poverty. We work with policymakers to tackle the causes of poverty. We raise public awareness of poverty to create pressure for change. Discrimination and prejudice play a large role in the lives of people experiencing poverty. That is why challenging negative attitudes and addressing gender and race inequality are integral parts of Oxfam's work. So it's an interesting thing that the statistics on poverty, and it comes in many forms. You've got your fuel poverty, food poverty, all sorts of these days. So that's about it from me, Dominic. If you've got any comments before I move on and hand it over to you.
Yeah, I'll move on to mine. There's one thing about poverty. If you're claiming ESA, and you might be entitled to own water grant for £140. You've seen this last year, which you better apply after April. If you apply for it, which is actually fill an online form. With others, you have to fill out a form and post it back off. And yeah, it's £140 added to your electric bill, just for your electric, not your gas.
Yeah, and there's also a conversation uploaded from the SSE energy supplier with information on that. So if you don't fancy ringing up and spending hours on end, you can listen to the first 20 minutes or so of that upload, and you'll find out all the ways and means to be officially declared eligible for that allowance. So,
and so pensions are liable for the ADAT as well. As you know, my friend's mum's got it.
Yeah.
If you're a pensioner, she were eligible for it.
Right. No worries.
So you can claim state pension.
We should all be eligible at the end of the day. Yeah, the power should belong to the people. So anyway, moving on to you, Dominic. Let's see what you've got for us.
I've got Islamic State today. Islamic State says Jordanian airstrike kills US hostage. They're claiming that the US hostage has been killed in airstrikes. So let's have a look at this. Islamic State militants claim that a US female hostage has been killed in a Jordanian airstrike in Syria. IS named the woman as aid worker Kayla G. Muller in statements online. The group provided no other proof of the claim beyond pictures of the alleged site of the airstrike in Raqqa, the group's stronghold in Syria. The White House said it was deeply concerned by the reports, but that it has yet to verify them. Jordan has questioned the IS claims. A graduate of Northern Arizona University, Miss Muller, 26, first came to the Turkish-Syrian border in 2012 to work with refugees. She was abducted while working in Aleppo, Syria the following year. The IS statement said she was killed in a building where she was being held. It did not provide images of her body. If her death is confirmed, she would be the 4th American to die while being held by IS. Journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff and aid worker Peter Kassig were beheaded by the group. This is Kayla Jean Muller and her mother Marsha on the picture in the car. There are many who raised doubts by Islamic State's claim that Kayla Mullah was killed in a collision strike in Raqqa, an attack which none of its own fighters died, it says. Jordan has increased its participation in the bombing of the militant stronghold, since one of its pilots was shown being burned to death by IS militants, and officials in Jordan insist they will keep up the pressure. Saying a Western hostage has been killed by Jordan is being seen by some as an attempt to take the wind off the sails of this renewed Jordanian resolve to fight the militants, claiming that the coalition killed Miss Mullah could also provide a convenient solution to the Islamic State's problem of what to do with a female hostage, one they might not want to be shown killing in the same barbaric way as they have others. Fortunately, the doubts by the veracity of the Islamic State claim will provide little comfort to Kayla Mullah's family and friends. So yeah, this is Kayla Mullah. I've not actually heard about her, actually. She's not in papers or anything that she got took hostage. So in 2012, she got took hostage. Right, next is man steals purse from dying woman hit by a lorry in Lee. A man who stole the purse of a dying elderly woman who was lying in the road having been hit by a lorry is being sought by Greater Manchester Police. The 82-year-old was killed when she was struck on Lee Road, Lee, at about 11:40 GMT on Wednesday. Police said that after the crash, officers were told a man was seen to steal her purse before leaving. The man is described as white, about 6 foot, between 30 and 40, and of medium build, with a brown beard. Detective Sergeant Neil Lawless said it was one of the most disgusting crimes I have ever investigated. I find it hard to believe that someone could stoop so low to commit such a horrific offence, he said. Yeah, so someone's been hit by a lorry and a man stole a purse. You got any comments on that, Paul?
Well, that's just dreadful, that. I mean, that's the lowest price, that really, isn't it? And you know what? On an incident like that, where, you know, everything's just happened sudden and it's a shock, the people who rush to help will not actually realise or click on that there's people like this who are actually around that scene for purposes of, you know, self-beneficial, like for stealing purses and things. You'll not even register in your head because you don't even believe that there's people who can stoop to that sort of level. But they're out there, and they take advantage of it. And they take advantage of the people who are helping. They don't even realise what they're doing. So you've got to be very careful when you're rushing to help and respond when you see some sort of accident, because not everybody who's rushing to that accident is there to help, I'm afraid. I've witnessed it myself. That's
this
shocking.
is Lee Road.
82-year-old. Well, I hope you've not left us on an article like that, Dom.
Finally, we've got mummified Mongolian monk. He's not dead. He has been meditating for 200 years, experts say. A 200-year-old monk found mummified in Mongolia is not dead, but in a deep state of meditation, according to high-level Buddhists. The body was confiscated by police after a man attempted to sell it on the black market near the Mongolian capital of Ulaanbaatar. Dr. Barry Kurzin, physician to the Dalai Lama and a Buddhist academic, says the monk is in a state of tukdam, one step away from reaching enlightenment and becoming a Buddha. Gankugian Prabhupada, the founder of the Mongolian Institute of Buddhist Art and the Ulaanbaatar Buddhist University, told the Siberian Times, the Lama is sitting in the lotus position Vajra. The left hand is opened and the right hand symbolises of the preaching sutra. This is a sign that the Lama is not dead, but is in a very deep meditation, according to the ancient tradition of Buddhist Lamas. The identity of the individual is unclear, but some speculate it may be the teacher of Lama Dashi Doza Itagolov, who was found mummified in 2002. This is him here.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Apparently found on the black market, someone tried selling him.
Really?
I don't know how he got it. Came into hands with him. I had the privilege to take care of some meditators who were in the took-down state, Dr. Curtin said. If the person is able to remain in this state for more than 3 weeks, which rarely happens, his body gradually shrinks, and in the end all that remains from the person is his hair, nails and clothes. Usually in this case, people who live next to the monk see a rainbow that glows in the sky for several days. This means that he has found a rainbow body. This is the highest state close to the state of Buddha. If the meditator can continue to stay in this meditative state, he can become a Buddha. Reaching such a high spiritual level, the meditator will also help others, and all the people around will feel a deep sense of joy. The monk's body is currently under investigation at the National Centre for Forensic Expertise.
Fascinating
So,
stuff.
yeah, so what do you think about it then? Do you think he's still alive?
in some way, shape or form it may be, but not looking at what I can see, I won't say. Maybe in the conscious term he could still be alive. Who knows? It's a bit hard to say really. Look at an image.
I think he's long gone.
He did well pronouncing his name right. The founder of the Mongolian Institute of Buddhist Art. 10 for that.
Right, that's all for me then.
No worries, good stuff. Okay, it's about all we've got for an half an hour's worth of Flux news for you this morning. So do join us again for more Flux news coming your way as soon as we can. Thanks for tuning in.